as training supervisor, the big role that you do is educating the agents.
Training isn't something that you did. Training is something that you do. Medicare is evolving every year. There's still things that I learn listening to calls. There's something to learn on every call.
This is for every agency out there that's not utilizing a screen share. It's an option that you've got to be looking at, because when they do it, we get better results.
In training, we really put emphasis on product knowledge. If an agent understands the product, they can sell it. As humans, we tend to steer away from things that we don't understand. So if they don't understand the product, they're not going to sell the product. They're not going to understand how that product fits into somebody's life.
All right, so I'm excited about this one today. I've got Billy Riley here, and he's our senior training supervisor at EIP. It's a role that, has kind of grown in recent, I guess, this past year into a little bit more than what it was. And so we're going to kind of go into that. And what I mean is we've got now two divisions where before we were only, focused on one, just the Medicare side of things. Now, Billy, I know you've got a strong management background. I think you were in retail before you joined EIP. You weren't in the insurance business at all before you joined EIP, and you joined as a sales agent, as a Medicare agent. Is that right?
That's right. So I joined EIP February of 2021.
Okay, so like the heart of the pandemic.
Yep. So after the pandemic, knew nothing about insurance, knew nothing about Medicare. Like you said, I was retail management, for 15 years. That's what I did.
Okay, and now was EIP in the office? I guess the pandemic kind of hit in 2020,
right?
And I think EIP was out of the office for a little bit of time, but
So when I joined in February, we were in the office.
Okay. Now it was still like really, really solid. I know in that pandemic time, pre-pandemic, people were kind of skeptical about being on the phone, and making sales a little bit more difficult. And then the pandemic hit and people were like, I only want to do it on the phone.
Yeah. I don't want nobody in my house. I don't want no one.
I had a couple crazy clients. I started in 2010.
Okay.
I started face-to-face sales. And then when the pandemic hit, I still, I've still got a lot of those clients on the books, and I had a couple, that I call up and I'm like, oh yeah, we can take care of it. Everything's, we can do it over the phone. We don't have to do it face to face. A couple like, no, I want you to come out to the house. So there were still some of those people out there that wanted that face to face, but for the most part, people were like, hey, I like doing this over the phone. So you jumped in to sales. Tell me about like just kind of your experience. I mean, coming from no insurance, no Medicare background, how was that for you jumping into that sales role?
Yeah, I think it was kind of good for me in a sense. I didn't come with any, bad habits that, are trained out in the industry or anything like that. So I came in, eager to learn, I knowing nothing, I really relied on the process, the EIP and the script.
Just having that
something intelligent to say that I knew nothing about.
True. Yeah. I know that is one of the, like, where do you start? And having that like kind of firm guideline of where to start. One of the errors that I made when I first got in the business is I memorized every plan that was available in the area. I did Humana. I was a career rep for them. And so I had every plan, and in my first couple appointments, I'd show every plan.
Yeah.
And it was like, and I,
all this new knowledge that you want to share with everybody.
Yeah. I wanted to prove how much I knew. Yeah. And they gave us like a roller bag, I think, to bring your stuff in. Cause it was all paper apps and everything back then. And so I think my roller bag, like the wheels fell off by like the end of the first year because I had it so loaded down, and I'd lose sales by just showing too much. And didn't really, we had a script, we had like a little flip chart that we had to do, but it wasn't, it was more focused on here's how you go through the summary of benefits, but not like that introduction, your small talk, your fact finding. They said those things, but we didn't have a script to go with. So I think you're right. Having that like formalized script probably made it easy. And now you jumped in. Do you remember like how many sales you made your first month?
Yeah. So my first month, I hit about 24 sales. As a
Really?
GR1. Yeah.
From
I had a
nothing
very
to,
successful 3 months, the first 3 months on the phone.
okay.
And then obviously once you, like anyone else, whenever you're doing very well, right? You think you got things figured out, and that wasn't the case. So,
Uh-huh.
then I spent the
So
next, 3 to 6 months, trying to fix, what, fix what I wasn't doing in the beginning.
I spoke with Hassett, Michael
Mm.
Hassett. His
Yep.
interviews up on the site, and it's one of the things that he kind of talked about is kind of, and also TB talked about this as well, is people get in, they get comfortable,
Yep.
and then kind of you kind of
And then you think you
merge.
know more than the script, and you think you know a little bit better than the process. And one thing is, you'll get humbled pretty quick.
Yeah, I always referred to insurance sales as it's kind of like a big ocean liner or cruise ship out in the ocean, and you're doing good, you're moving in the right direction, but you can't tell that you're turning in the wrong direction until you've turned in the wrong direction too far. And by the time you realize that you're either gonna like hit an iceberg or hit the land, and you gotta like try to turn, but it takes some time to get back. And that was that 3 to 6 months of taking that time to kind of get back in line, relearning the things that you had initially got onto.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Um,
You have to relearn, the process, because
I think
once you're
I
out
think
process
that's
for so long, your process becomes the process. So then you guys start breaking bad habits.
yeah, those bad habits that you said you didn't bring in,
Yeah.
that then create.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a
Yeah.
super common thing for agents in the insurance business,
Yeah.
especially if you like hit the ground running like you did.
Oh yeah.
Now how long were you in that sales position for before
So
you
yeah, so I was on
moved
the
to
phones. I
management?
was selling for 3 years.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, 3 years. I loved being on the phone. I got to talk to, several different types of people every day. So about 3 years. February I left the phone December of 23.
Now, 3 years, I mean, especially being on the phone, because just how many reps you get, you've run into just about everything at
Yeah.
that point
Yep.
in terms of the objections, the crazy stories. Now you've got your own crazy stories that you can tell. And so then it was, okay, now what made you decide, okay, I want to kind of step into that next role? And what was your next role?
Yeah, so my next role was, I became a nesting supervisor, and, going back from when I was in leadership in previous companies, one thing I always enjoyed was developing people. That's something I've always enjoyed doing that, so the amount that I learned on the phone, through trial and error, through making those mistakes. So being able to, train and teach other people, how to do that and be successful at it. Because one thing is, this will, for me anyways, completely change my financial life. So watching, getting to watch other people change their financial life is absolutely hands down, the best thing.
And now you said a term that maybe is totally common within
Mhm.
EIP.
Yeah.
You said nesting. What is that for? I mean, because this isn't made for people that work for EIP.
Okay.
This is for other agencies
So
out there. What
yeah,
is nesting?
so nesting, so essentially that's training, right? So
Okay.
whenever you get hired on, you go through onboarding and Med 101 with Tara, and then you spend the next 90 days in training, which we consider a nesting period.
Okay. And so that's, I mean, what's like the kind of the first couple weeks of nesting? Kind of what does that 3 month window look like?
Yeah, so I mean the first week that we have them, we're really going over the scripting with them, intro objections, and towards the end of the 2 week mark, we start going over the NEPQ style questioning, and with Jeremy Minor, and then we really get into Salesforce. So they're usually in Salesforce by week 3. I would say week 3 of training or nesting period. And that's when they really get to see our process. They get to see our Salesforce, our scripting, and actually get to go through and, kind of mock a real call, so to speak.
I don't think people realize how important what you just mentioned is, which is training on just the systems.
Yeah.
Salesforce.
Yeah.
It's second nature for you as somebody that works in the business. You know where to click, you know where to get your quotes, where to find your cheat sheets and things along those lines. But as somebody new coming in that's already drinking through a fire hose, trying to learn about Medicare, trying to learn scripting, I mean, I can only imagine that like just that portion alone, takes some time. I know it was one of the issues that I've had with agents over the years where, they can sell, but then they can't put the policy into the system. And so like, what is
And
that?
even navigating, like we have 3 screens. So, the navigation, the multitasking that they have to do, they have to be able to active listen, navigate the screen, and do all these things all while, this is a brand new, they just learned Medicare, right? So that first, I would say that first 6 weeks on the phone, is really just developing them, getting them used to, kind of going through the sales process, and using the different cheat sheets and tools that we have available to them.
Now, do you guys get down to like a standardization as much as like, okay, on your left side is like your script side,
Yep.
on your right side?
Because now that we do screen share, which is something that's, relatively newer, we're very specific on, hey, on your left screen, we want your Salesforce and all your scripting. Your top right screen is just going to be your share screen. All communication and cheat sheets will be on the bottom screen, the laptop screen. So we're very particular where we want that stuff.
That makes sense, especially on the management side. Everybody's got their own personal preferences, but as the supervisor, when you come over, you need to be able to, just kind of pick out where they're at on the script. And I don't want to be looking at, trying to figure out which screen it's on. And so I think that's, another kind of little detail that doesn't sound important, but standardizing even things down to that, I think is crucial. How long have we been doing that kind of screen standardization? Is that a newer thing, or is that kind of just been in place for a long time?
No, that's relatively new. That's something that, we've just started doing probably middle of last year. And really this year we've really brought it to life. Now we're auditing, making sure that they're asking for screen share, it adds that personalization, being able to, turn your camera on, not even necessarily keep your camera on the whole time. Sometimes it's nice to just turn the camera on, introduce yourself, and, that way they see that you're a real person. And it just really brings that face to face, right? Because that generation that we're talking to, like you said before, they want that face to face interaction. They want you. Before COVID, they were going to people's houses, right? So giving them that ability to, hey, on my phone, I can look and I can see you, just adds that extra layer of credibility to yourself.
I think some people think it might be intrusive. Do we make it where it's like a two-way where we have to be able to see them, or is it's a one-way, or do they get the option?
No, it's optional, right? If they want to share their side of the camera, and which they do, there's a lot of times that they do. If they want to share their camera, right, and turn the camera on, they absolutely have the ability to do that.
I think that's great.
Yeah.
In the past, there's like 2 different types of conversation that you have. And then I feel like in recent years, with the rise of Zoom, with the rise of just ubiquitous, smartphones and computers everywhere, people are, the expectation is that face-to-face interaction. And I know, when I have a meeting with somebody and it's it's a Teams meeting or a Zoom meeting, if they don't turn the camera on, I'm like, why? What's going on here? Because my camera's on. And then I feel weird a little bit after a while, where if I'm the only one looking at myself and they can see me. And so I think that personalization is huge and probably breaks down those barriers a lot.
Yeah. It's almost expected now. When you're on a Teams call, or it's almost expected now that you turn your camera on.
It's almost rude if you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. I completely agree that it's, and as our clients get used to that, I mean, this is for every agency out there that's not utilizing a screen share. I think it's something that you absolutely should, look at doing, because if we're doing it and other groups are doing it, and, even if you're just an independent agent out there, you've got a camera on your laptop. You've got Google Meet for free if you don't want to pay for something. It's an option that you've got to be looking at, because like you said, we audit ours. And the only reason that we audit if they do it or not is because when they do it, we get better results.
Right. And, it's not like we're requiring them to do it, right? We're requiring them to offer it, right? It's 100% up to, the client on the phone, the opportunity we have on the phone. It's totally up to them whether or not that they actually do the screen share. So all we do is make sure that, we're at least offering that service to the client.
Making sure the agents offer it, because if they don't, they can just kind of make the excuse of not.
Right.
I mean, it's that script adherence and keeping people accountable to doing that, because if they follow the thing, it's kind of like what you said with your own personal experience in sales.
Yeah.
You hit the ground running, had some, 3 months of great success, and then kind of veered off. And I think that's, I don't think, I know that's common. That is every man's story, every woman's story that's been in any sort of business, that they run into that type of thing. And so with the screen sharing that we do, like I said, we see that it actually improves, our close ratio for our clients, because it is that much more personal. And then there's other things that we can do. It's not just about having the other person on camera, but we can share the computer screen as well, right?
Yeah. We actually share the screen itself. So they actually see, and, kind of like our, when we go through education, right? Initially, when we get them on screen share, we just kind of have our bio page up. It gives a little bit about the agent. It gives their, pictures, pictures of their personal life, their hobbies, what they like to do. But once we get to education, right, we are actually sharing, like slides, as we're going through education, so that the client can actually, follow along with us without having to take notes, right? Because we want the client active listening to the education, not necessarily taking notes, because they're going to receive, after every call, they're going to receive all those slides in their email.
We don't tell them they can't take notes, but it's good to have it visually,
right?
One of the things that I know personally I would run into, and then my agents would run into back in the day, is when you get to that point where you're asking for, even though everybody knows they've got to give it up, but they got to give up their Medicare number. We need to get your address. You got to, most of the time there's a Social Security, and then every time you got to, how are we paying? And so then to have the ability to then share inputting that information into, Aetna, we see the carriers in the background, your Aetnas, your Cignas, your Humana, United Healthcare website, it adds that little bit extra credibility. Do you find that as well?
Yeah, I mean, if they're on screen share, very rarely do we receive any type of objection to, Social Security numbers, bank account, right? Because we have the carrier portal, on the share screen. So they see the questions, and sometimes they'll even try to answer the questions ahead of time, because they're actually reading ahead of you, right? So, when they see the banking, they just start giving it. We don't even have to necessarily ask for it. They see it on the screen. So, to your point, it adds that extra layer of credibility that you're not trying to do anything harmful with their information.
I think it also assists on the compliance side, right? With different disclosures as well, because I mean, that disclosure is on their screen. They can see it right there. You can read it out to them. They can read it themselves. One of the things that we're a little bit different at EIP is all of our agents on the Medicare floor are what I refer to as like omni agents, in terms of they can sell both a Medicare supplement as well as a Medicare Advantage plan, which I deal with a lot of groups out there, and we are pretty rare in that regard. I run into a lot of groups that are MA only or Med Sup only, or they've got an MA team or a Med Sup team. And so our agents have the ability to do both. Talk about, some of the challenges that you've run into on, the training side of things, but then also kind of on the sales side of having that. But then after we talk challenges, I also want to talk the benefits of it as well. So on the training side of things, what do you think are kind of the big challenges there of having omni agents that can sell both MA and Med Sup?
Yeah. So, I mean, with Medicare, in general, right? Whenever when you turn 65 or you take Medicare Part A and B, you need a Medicare Advantage plan or a Medicare supplement, right?
And sometimes they think they mean the same thing.
They think they mean the same thing.
I think when you started, we were primarily Medicare supplement.
We only did Medicare supplement. There was no Medicare Advantage at all. We only had Med Sup.
What would you say is kind of, from the agent's point of view, from somebody in nesting that's new, do you find that some agents get overwhelmed with having both options, or they tend to prefer one over the other? Like, what do you think the biggest challenges are there?
Yeah, so I mean the biggest challenges I see is compliance, right? And with Medicare Advantage, there's a lot of moving parts to Medicare Advantage, where that Medicare Advantage alone could overwhelm somebody. But then throwing in other products like a Medicare supplement, right, where there's the compliance is a little bit different. Okay. I think the compliance side of the Medicare Advantage and Medicare supplements is the biggest hurdle that we see new agents coming in where they struggle.
Really? So it's just making sure that is it making sure that when they, when the client decides which track they want to go down, then now we stay compliant with the Medicare Advantage rules? Is that one of the issues? Where, like for instance, no real health underwriting questions or things along those lines. What's the big compliance issue on the Medicare Advantage side that you see?
So I would say with Medicare Advantage, there's so many different options. So the as an agent, they get overwhelmed feeling, hey, am I putting this person in the right plan? Right. With Medicare supplement, there's about 3 options, right? Plan F, G, and N. There's about 3 options. With Medicare Advantage, there's thousands of options. So for a new agent coming in, to feel, hey, I got to make sure I present the right plan.
Yeah, and presenting the right plan, and I think one of the things that we've seen a major rise in our industry in the last couple of years, and it's actually taken a toll on some of the carriers, are CTMs, or complaints to Medicare. And I think one of the big issues is there's a lot of groups out there that have gotten into the Medicare Advantage space for various reasons that we don't need to necessarily go into. I think if you're in this space, you probably know why people make that choice. But in order to do a compliant Medicare Advantage sale, it's not only following script and doing all your disclosures, but to avoid those complaints, we need to be looking up every drug, making sure that all the drugs are covering what tier level they're in properly. And then, this is probably the one that gets glossed over a lot, is the network that people are in. We've seen a rise in PPO plans in the last couple of years. I think we're going to probably see a little bit of a pullback in the coming years on those PPO plans. But I think what happened a lot of times that caused a lot of those complaints is people would say, oh, you're on a PPO plan, you can go out of network. And then they wouldn't even look at
you want.
Yeah, any doctor. Yeah. You want any doctor. Just pay out of network. And that's kind of true. And I say kind of true because there's a lot of doctors that'll be like, no, I'm not taking that. I don't even care. Even though they're supposed to, they can still, say, I'm not doing it. Or they'll say, you can come to me out of network, but I want you to pay up front, and then you get reimbursed by the carrier.
Well, in the carrier and the plan itself, or the doctor has to accept the payment terms and conditions of the plan. So the doctor doesn't have to take that plan.
Yeah, they don't have to, and then they also don't have to take your copayment.
Yep.
And a lot of people don't realize that on a PPO plan is they can say, no, you're paying for the full cost of this visit, and then you can send the bill. You can send it up to, then you just have your $40 copayment. And I think we've seen a rise in that. And so to be able to compliantly go through that and pick out which plans are going to be the right plan for somebody, there are those steps that you've got to go to make sure that you're avoiding those. And so, I definitely agree. There is more compliance on the Medicare Advantage side. What would you say from start to finish? If you're going through, and we do education on every call. We do fact finding, education on every call. Let's call that 20 minutes, probably 15, 20 minutes of getting through that if you're doing it properly. Then if we get in and we pick out a plan on a Medicare Advantage call, how long should that call take? Typically,
so you're talking from, if you're looking at from start to finish, right? You could be upwards of 2 hours, 2.5 hours, depending on several factors. How many doctors do they have? How many medications do they have? How much research are you doing for, formulary exceptions and things like that? So, but the average call, I would say between 1.5 to 2 hours for a Medicare Advantage call.
Totally. And so how many of those can you do in a day? You get limited if you're doing it compliant. Yes, compliantly.
Compliantly.
Absolutely. Now we talked about Medicare. We talked about Medicare overall, but as I mentioned earlier, we were primarily a Medicare supplement agency. Then we brought Medicare Advantage on in recent years, and now what would you say, the last year and a half, we brought on the life side of things, and we
Yeah,
kind of
about a year
touched
and
on
a
that
half
a
we
little bit
brought on
earlier.
the life side. Yeah.
Okay, and now you, as the supervisor, you're not just Medicare supervisor training. You do both life and Medicare, and
Yep.
we've got multiple classes that we've had this. How many classes have we had this year so far?
This year, so we've had 3 Medicare and 2 life insurance classes this year.
Okay, and so that's a lot of classes.
That's a lot of classes. It's a
We've
lot of
been bringing on a lot of people. There's been
yeah,
a lot of training that's going
a
on.
lot of growth in 2025.
Okay, and so on the life side, tell me a little bit about how that differs from the Medicare side. I think you were kind of going into it, but it's a more emotional sale. Is the education part
Yeah,
as
so let's
long?
start from the very beginning, right? So let's start from day one. So with life insurance, it's a smaller ramp up period, meaning that they're in training or nesting about a month less, right? For a couple of different reasons. Number one, there's not a lot of information to go over for life insurance. It's pretty simple. We really specialize in the final expense and term. So it's not like, they're learning all this compliance or they're learning all this, different product knowledge, right? And all these different products. So with them, that first week that I had them is just going over scripting, right? Intro objections. And then the following week we're in Salesforce. That's how much different it is than Medicare.
Was it instead of 2 weeks of Medicare 101 and all of
It's
that
like 2
jazz?
days. It's like 2 days. Yeah. So it's a lot less. So when I get them, we have that first month as a JR1, from I would say day 1 to the end of the month, they're already starting to produce.
Really? I mean, it makes sense because you're not learning
Right.
about life insurance is simple. You buy it, you pay, you get approved, and you pay for it. And if you die, it pays out.
It pays out. It's that simple.
And especially when we're talking about term and final expense, we're not talking about index universal life, where we're talking about overfunding and planning for retirement or anything like that. We do have a wealth division. That's but that's its own separate beast, and we deal with annuities and single premium life policies, index ULs, and so we have that. But in terms of what we're talking about on the life side, it's pretty straightforward how the product works.
Yep.
And so we get people on the phone, and I've actually, I get the different reports and sales reports daily. Our Medicare team, as always, is crushes it, does great. Our life team, over the past couple months, I've seen, just consistently, they're blowing daily numbers out of the water. And so it's ramping up and getting more and more, results out of that life team. Now you talked about the emotional side. Like, speak to the emotional side of a life sale.
So one thing that I've noticed is the majority of the calls that people go online because it's not like they woke up and like, oh, I need life insurance, right? Something happened in their personal life that caused them to go looking for life insurance. Maybe they're a relative passed away, or a friend, maybe a neighbor. And it got them thinking like, oh wow, I don't really have anything in place. So they start looking. So when we get them on the phone, all we're doing is we're asking questions, right? Not boxing them into a box of fear necessarily, but we want them to feel why they're on the phone. Like, why am I shopping for life insurance? And then and just kind of keep that conversation flowing. That by the end of the call, they're asking, hey, how do I get this? What's the next steps to do this?
Yeah, we're not just cold calling people out of the blue. You're right. They took an active step to go, I'm going to put this information in about life insurance. And the only reason that they did that is something. And so you have to kind of find what that something is.
Yep.
I mean,
sometimes they don't tell you right away. Sometimes, you just have to, create a comfortable environment for them to have that open discussion with you. Yeah. Right. So you have to be personable, with them, and ask the right questions. Not just ask the right questions, but ask the right questions at the right time. And
I just wanted to quote. I just wanted to see how much it cost.
Yep.
but why? Like you have no reason to know what life insurance should
Yep.
cost.
Yep.
Why are you willing to pay any money to an insurance
Hmm.
company in the event that you're dead? You're not going to get any of
You're
that
not getting
back.
into that. Right.
Yeah. And so it's a sale that, is not a sale that is, necessarily for you while you're here, but it's a peace of mind sale.
Yeah.
And I think it's also important for the agents to believe in the product.
Absolutely.
Do you talk about that? Do you
Oh,
instill
yeah.
that in the agents?
Yeah, that's part of our training, we try to figure out, what brought you here, like what brought you to life insurance. Have you experienced anything? And it's just getting the agent to talk about, and from my experience, everyone has had some sort of experience with death, right? So getting them to understand the importance of life insurance, and that's really what we do during training that I think makes a huge impact for when they're on the phone.
Sure. And it's different for an agent on the life side than on the Medicare side. Medicare, you're fulfilling a need, like you were saying. For most people, I'm turning 65 or I just got my Medicare. I have to get something.
I have to have something.
I have to have something,
Right.
right? And you don't really need to empathize with that. You can empathize with wanting health insurance because we all have health insurance, or most people are paying for health insurance and need it. So you've got that basic empathy, but most people get their health insurance kind of the same way they get their car insurance, just because they have to.
Yep.
Right. But you don't have to buy life insurance, right? And so to instill that in the agent and to really make them believe that, I think that's a very important thing, because it's also very hard to sell something that you think is BS. If you don't believe in it, then it's going to have a hard time selling it. I think that's the same with like ancillary products as well. I put a video out on our channel a little bit back about how, the agency owners and agency managers have to believe in ancillary products, or else your agents are never going to sell them.
Right.
And so
otherwise they're going to go somewhere else and buy it.
Yeah, because people buy them every day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a growing industry, a hospital indemnity plan. Why do people buy it? There's good reason to buy it, right? There's good reason at all ages. I remember there was a hospital indemnity plan that Humana used to sell that was that didn't have a pregnancy exclusion. I was like, this is like shooting fish in the barrel. This is wonderful. Just look at women in their mid-20s that recently married. Because it was a great product. It had a 9-month pregnancy exclusion.
Yeah.
It's like, well, that all that means is you just don't be pregnant when you buy it, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's how I feel about the accident plan. Like, everyone should have an accident plan.
Tell me about that.
Yeah. So, I mean, especially, when think about what and this is how I explain it to our agents is, the clients that we're selling to are over 55, right? Whether it's in life insurance or Medicare, they're at least over the age of 50, 55. The number one reason why they go to the emergency room is due to a trip and fall, right? So why wouldn't we offer it? Like, why wouldn't you offer that to somebody, right? If you would buy it, if it makes sense for you at age 30, 40 years old, think about how much more meaningful that policy would hold for someone that's 55 to 80.
Even if you have a Medicare supplement, it's not a bad idea to have an accident plan also. Right? Because sure, your bills are paid, but are all your bills paid? For some people, there's things that they need to do. They need to, maybe put a ramp in at their house because they've got a wheelchair or something, and so to use that.
People are still working, right? So what happens if you trip and fall and you have to get surgery and you're out of work for 3 months?
Yeah, and so I think that's huge. I think talking about kind of the products that we sell in a real way to our clients is a big thing, but as a trainer, instilling the need in those agents, and so that they fully understand it, so that when they're selling a product, they're not just selling it because they have to hit a number. Yeah. They're selling it because they actually believe in it and the clients need it. I think is a huge piece of the puzzle when it's overall said and done. Yeah. Because I mean, for one, as an agency, it's good. And as an agent, it's good. I mean, we attach. What's our attachment rate on ancillary? I've said like 60% is kind of the number.
Easily, it's doubled. Since we really in training, we really put emphasis on product knowledge, because people will sell what they understand. If an agent understands the product, they can sell it, right? And that's I'm a big believer in that. If people, as humans, right, we tend to steer away from things that we don't understand, right? So if they don't understand the product, they're not going to sell the product. They're not going to understand how that product fits into somebody's life.
That makes total sense. Now, coming up, just a couple months away, I feel like our life is either AEP is here, AEP is done, or AEP is coming, right?
Yep.
And there's like the 3 phases of the year for anybody in the Medicare world.
Yeah.
And we're in the AEP is coming phase right
Yep.
now, right?
Yep.
To talk about, kind of some of the things that we're doing besides just certifications and all of the time that takes. But do we have kind of a little bit of an emphasis on, hey, let's kind of start prepping for AEP and, focusing on maybe our clients that we weren't able to close, didn't have an SEP, or what are we doing in that?
We put a big emphasis on that, especially with, I give you an example. We have a new team right now, right, that just started. So their 3rd month on the phone is going to be October, right? So our training is geared, their 3rd month's AEP. So our training is a little bit more geared now towards, okay, we need to start setting these people up for AEP as well. It's not just the training, but the things, maybe you can't help somebody today, right? And then what's the follow-up process look like now compared to if you're talking to them in January?
What does that look like? Is it in terms of, identifying those AEP clients? Is it just kind of making sure that they're going through the checklist? Okay, there are no special election periods. And then making sure that they set that, and how do we keep them?
So we're going to exhaust every SEP. We're going to exhaust every option we have to get that person the ability to change, not necessarily change, but at least go through the options to change. And if they don't have an SEP or anything like that, so what we do is we don't wait till the 15th, right, to follow up with them. We touch base with them before that in the beginning of October. Touch base with them, get a temperature check, see if they're still looking to change. And then, at that first initial call, we're still collecting doctors, we're still collecting medications. So that way in October, when we follow up with them, we can, kind of go over the plan details, because October 1st, all the plans come out, right? So that way, that first day of AEP, you're really just, your book of business, you should be enrolling people.
You pre-enrolling people.
Pre-enrolling people for
for the 15th,
getting. No, I mean, so for the beginning of October. So a lot of them are touching base in the beginning of October.
Yeah.
Going through the plan details, and then on, scheduling the enrollments.
Yeah.
For the
scheduling
15th, 16, 17.
The signatures and everything.
Right.
If we talk compliance, I just want
yeah.
It's important that we make sure there is no such thing as enrolling before, especially over the phone.
Right.
Back in the day when we did paper apps, you could fill out the whole paper app and then tell them,
right,
okay, you have to sign this on the 15th and put it in the envelope.
Yeah.
And then what I was doing
clear, October 1st is the earliest you can talk about plans.
Yes. So that's when we can talk plans. That's when we can go, hey, we've already got your list of doctors. Do you have any new doctors?
Mm-hmm.
We've already got your list of medications. Any new medications? Okay, let's identify the plan that's right for you.
Right.
That's good. Now, as the client, also, they can just kind of take the stress off. And I don't think people, I don't think us as agents appreciate that enough, or, even if you're not an agent, appreciate the amount of stress that AEP is for most of our clients, especially people that are on a Medicare Advantage plan. Most Med Sup people, if they like their plan, they're going to keep their plan. But I saw a study that was done with like 1,000, Medicare beneficiaries, and they asked them, how many people are willing to change their plan? It's about 40% of people that are on a plan are willing to change. I actually thought that number was kind of low. But that 40% of people, I mean, we're talking 15 million Medicare beneficiaries.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of
people.
Yeah. That's 15 million Medicare Advantage.
Yep.
Right. So that's a heck of a lot of people that are on a Medicare Advantage plan. 40% of that.
40% of that's a lot.
It's like 9 million people. Right.
Yeah.
And so, my math might be wrong. Don't correct me in the comments, but, that's still a heck of a lot of people that we need to help. There's no way, that I don't know how many licensed agents are out there, but you're still going to have people that are going to miss their opportunity. And then not to mention all the ads they're getting, not to mention the scam calls, the bad actors out there that hopefully continue to get cracked down on. There was a big old lawsuit that came out this week with some of the bad actors in the field. I think it was $145 million FTC settlement. And so we're hopefully going to see more of that, getting those people out. But it is still a stressful time for our clients, and we've got to prep for them and be ready as an organization. So I think that's huge. Now, all that we've gone over, we've talked, plans. We've talked about ancillaries. We've talked about, how you train for the difference between Medicare versus life, the emotional versus kind of the needs base. And so, out of everything we've talked about, is there anything that you think that, I didn't go over, we missed? I'm sure there's a bunch, but one thing that kind of stands out to you that you think, hey, this is something that I see on a daily basis in my role or just in the Medicare field that other people should be focused on a little bit more?
I mean, nothing too. I think I put a lot of emphasis on the education, right? Making sure you're educating the client on the phone, making sure that they fully understand what Part A, Part B, the functions of Medicare, and fully understanding all their options. I think that's something that we do here that a lot of companies don't do, that I don't see done more thoroughly, is education, right? Because, think about, as a new agent coming in, right, how stressful it is, right, to learn about Medicare, Medicare Advantage, Medicare supplements, right? And then I want you to consider what someone age 65, the stress that they feel, right, when they've been on group insurance for 20, 30 years and they're aging into this program that they know nothing about.
And they've only had 3 options, and they typically chose the cheapest one, or depending on the health of somebody in their family, they maybe chose the most expensive one, but they weren't really looking at much of the details. And so the education is almost a new thing for them, and we have to do it in order to be compliant. You've got to go through the full SOB to be able to, and that means summary of benefits, not son of a, and so make sure that that's clear. I think that's true. I want to kind of put an emphasis, you put an emphasis on educating the clients. And I think that's absolutely correct. But I think you kind of skip over what your role is by talking about the clients. And that's because we are client facing, but you, as training supervisor, the big role that you do is educating the agents and making sure that they have that knowledge. Like you said, if they understand a product, they can sell the product. If they don't understand the product, then they can't sell the product. Training's year round. You have to make sure people understand the benefits of a product so that the agents, can explain this to the clients. Because if they don't understand it, their clients aren't going to understand it, and they're not going to make any sales.
Yep. And I tell every agent when they come through the program is, training isn't something that you did, right? Training is something that you do. Medicare is evolving every year. There's, it's a never ending learn. I'm learning still today. There's still things that I learn listening to calls, right? There's still things that I learn, right? There's something to learn on every call.
Oh, there's absolutely rules and regulations. I mean, I think, just this year alone, the $2,000 cap on prescription drugs. Yeah. And then that program and how it works. I don't think we've even touched in terms of, as agents, I don't think we've experienced what that program is going to be like, because I don't think the people know how it works yet. Yeah. The beneficiaries. And so I don't think most agents understand truly how it works. It's not just a $2,000 cap, but the stabilization is huge as well. That's something that's brand new this past year. Deductibles for and premium for Medicare, that changes every year. It sounds like a simple thing, but if you're still saying last year's numbers next year, you're going to look foolish for a little bit. So we got to make sure we've got that in line. And there's just so many more. There's prior authorization for Medicare, original Medicare, coming down the pipe in 6 states coming up next year. And that's on 17 different things. There is, like you said, there is no such thing as I did training. It's training is it's something that we do all the time. Baseball players don't practice once and then they play baseball. They practice continuously. Same thing with any other sport. And so as agents and as supervisors and agencies, we have to have our practice both on and off the field. And I think that's super important. Hey man, I really appreciate it. This was a great chat today. We went over a bunch. I appreciate everything you do, and I'm excited. I'm excited to see how AEP goes, especially with that new class that you just talked about that's coming on board. I want to see those guys crush it out of the park.
They're excited too.
It's going to be an exciting end of the year, and we've got plenty of changes for next year. I just talked about 3 changes for that come down the pipe this year. There's going to be changes in 2026. Training never ends, I think, is kind of the theme of this.
We're always just trying to get better. We're always, after every class, we sit down as a team and, we're always trying to get better and evolve the training program too.
Yeah, improving the process is a constant as well.
Yep.
All right, man. I appreciate it.
All right, man.